Tucker Brennan blocked her path.
Look who just walked in.
Excuse me, I'm here to
pole dance, huh? Anderson hired you?
I'm the new self-defense instructor.
The three black belts burst out laughing. Garrett Holloway circled behind her.
Instructor? You look like a withered black stick.
Whitney ignored them and walked past. Furious, Tucker snatched the bag off her shoulder and dropped it.
Rule 1, you don't teach unless you fight us. Filthy monkey.
You crossed the line.
Whitney's voice was low.
What's your problem? You're too weak to fight. You can't even speak right.
Whitney bent down, picked up her bag, looked each of them in the eye. She said nothing. 1 minute later, these three would regret everything. Before those 52 seconds made her famous, you need to know who Whitney really was. Whitney Williams was 34 years old, and 3 days ago she had finally found a job that didn't make her flinch. For 4 years since the medical separation, the paperwork from the VA had moved slower than her healing. 3 job interviews, 3 rejections. 1 landlord who looked at her scarred forearm and reconsidered. A studio apartment with a footlocker at the foot of the bed. Inside the footlocker, a silver star she kept face down because looking at it hurt more than looking away. Then, Dale Anderson called. Anderson owned Apex Combat Academy, a glass and chrome temple in Aurora, Colorado, where wealthy professionals paid $800 a month to learn how to choke each other politely. He needed someone to teach a women's self-defense class twice a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, evenings. Survivors. Veterans. Women who flinched when men stood too close. He had read her file. The unclassified parts, anyway. "I'll take it," Whitney had said over the phone, her voice scraping out the words. The shrapnel and helmet had torn her vocal cords. She could speak. It just cost her. "One condition," she added. "Nobody knows what I did before." Anderson agreed. What Whitney didn't tell him was that she needed this job to feel useful again. Teaching was the only thing that had ever made the silence in her apartment feel less like a prison. Now, on day 1, she was standing in the locker room, listening to 3 men laugh on the other side of the wall. Tucker Brennan, 28, head instructor. Posters of him covered every column in the gym. He had been the academy's golden boy for 6 years, but his student count was dropping. A newer gym across town had pulled away half his roster. Tucker hadn't told anyone, but he was bleeding out professionally, and people who bleed out start biting. Hayden Voss, 26, Tucker's shadow. Black belt by talent, content creator by ambition. Every interaction in his life was a potential clip. He filmed his own breakfast. He filmed strangers crying. He filmed Whitney. Garrett Holloway, 30, private lesson client, old money, the kind of man who confused buying things with becoming things. He had been training at Apex for 2 years and still couldn't pass the Blue Belt curriculum, but his quarterly check kept Coach Anderson's lights on. 3 men, 3 black belts, 1 running theme. They had all decided, in unison, that Whitney's class was beneath them. Whitney pulled on her black polo, instructor patch, no name tag, no insignia. She tied her hair back, checked the clock, and walked out toward the side mat where her class would meet. She had 8 students signed up. The first one was already waiting. Brenda Holcomb was 52, with a long sleeve covering bruises that were healing in the wrong color. She had left her husband 11 months ago and still slept with a kitchen knife under her pillow. She had emailed Whitney before the first class with 1 line: "I just want to stop being scared in my own body." Whitney saw Brenda, walked over, knelt down to her level, pressed her hand once against the woman's shoulder. Brenda exhaled like she had been holding her breath for a year. Across the gym, Tucker watched. He nudged Hayden. Hayden lifted his phone. And somewhere behind them, a 19-year-old college sophomore named Maya Sutton was finishing her morning BJJ class, unaware that in 6 days, the man whose poster she had idolized for 2 years would dislocate her shoulder on purpose and call it training. This was day 1. It was about to get worse. 6 o'clock. The main mat at Apex emptied as the day class wrapped up. Whitney's 8 women filtered in, holding water bottles, holding each other's elbows for courage. Brenda came first. Then Margaret Hill, 40 years old, ex-Navy corpsman, the kind of woman who carried her shoulders square because slumping had never been an option. Then 6 others. Average age 46. Average reason for being there. Someone in their life had taught them what fear felt like. Whitney pulled out a stack of crash pads. Heavy ones, blue vinyl. She was lining them up along the side mat when Tucker walked past with a sponsorship guest, a man in a navy blazer holding a tablet. Tucker raised his voice, theatrical, loud enough for the women to hear. "And over here is our community wellness program. We try to give back. You know, therapy mat stuff." The blazer man chuckled. Tucker walked closer. He waited until Whitney bent down to set a pad in place. Then he kicked it. The pad slid across the polished floor and hit her shin. Whitney didn't react. The blazer man stopped chuckling. "Whoops," Tucker said. "Sweetheart, you good? That's not real training, is it? That's therapy. Honestly, your class is too weak for actual combat, and so are you." Brenda made a small sound, a flinch. Whitney looked up at Tucker, slow, steady. She didn't speak. She walked to the pad, picked it up, walked back, and set it down exactly where it had been. Then she turned to her 8 women. "Tonight we learned the wrist release." Her voice was rough but clear. "Because the first thing a bad man does is grab you, and the first thing you do is leave." The blazer man wasn't laughing anymore. He glanced at Tucker. Tucker forced a grin and steered him away. Hayden had filmed the whole thing. He posted it that night with the caption, "New instructor at Apex. Tuck welcomes her properly. LOL." The clip got 19,000 views in 12 hours. But what Tucker had just done, in front of a sponsorship rep, in front of 8 witnesses, in front of a live stream, was leave a trail. A trail Whitney was already counting. Week 1, Tuesday evening. Whitney was demonstrating a wrist release for the 3rd time, slowly, when Garrett Holloway walked in with 2 VIP clients to show off the facility. He stopped mid-stride, pointed. "Jesus, ladies, look at the arm on that one." Brenda froze. Margaret's jaw tightened. Whitney's right sleeve had ridden up past her elbow. The burn scar, ridged, dark, running from wrist to bicep, caught the overhead lights. Garrett walked closer, grinning. "BBQ accident? Boyfriend finally snap?" He turned to his clients. "This is what passes for an instructor here. Damaged goods teaching damaged goods." One of the VIPs laughed. The other looked away, uncomfortable. Margaret stood up. "You don't talk to her like that." Whitney placed a hand on Margaret's shoulder, pressed once. "Sit. I've got this." She turned to face Garrett. Didn't raise her voice, didn't move closer. She simply rolled her sleeve back down, slow, deliberate, and let her eyes hold his until he stopped grinning. Then she turned back to her class. "The wrist release. One more time. Watch the hips, not the hand." Garrett left. But the women had seen Whitney's hand tremble, just once, when she rolled the sleeve down. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. After class, Brenda stayed behind to fold the mats. "You okay?" Whitney nodded. Then, quieter. "You okay?" Brenda's eyes filled. "He sounded like my ex-husband." Whitney sat down on the mat next to her. Didn't speak. Just stayed there, breathing in and out, until Brenda's shoulders dropped. That was lesson 1 of the trail. What Tucker saw, watching from across the gym, was something he hated. He saw a woman who didn't break. Tucker had built his entire career on breaking people gently. Students who needed him, sponsors who admired him, women who laughed at his jokes. Whitney didn't laugh. Whitney didn't need him. And every week, 2 more of his BJJ students dropped out and signed up across town. He watched Brenda hug Whitney goodbye. He felt something ugly twist in his chest. He called Hayden. "I want everything she does on camera. Everything. We're going to make her famous." Week 2, Thursday. Whitney was teaching ground recovery, how to get up safely when knocked down, when Tucker walked through her side mat with 5 men in suits. He didn't have to walk through her space. He chose to. Excuse me, gentlemen. Sorry for the detour. As you can see, we have a community outreach class running. This is, well, he gestured at Whitney. Our instructor doesn't really speak. Vocal injury, supposedly. Imagine a martial arts instructor who can't bark commands. Wild, right? He laughed. 2 of the men in suits laughed politely. 3 didn't. Whitney's students stopped moving. Tucker leaned in toward his guests, but loud enough for Whitney to hear. Honestly, too weak for combat. Too weak to even speak combat. But Anderson likes the optics. Margaret stood up again. She teaches better than you ever did. The suits went silent. Tucker turned, smile fixed. Sweetheart, sit down before you embarrass yourself. Sweetheart yourself, Margaret said. I served 12 years in the Navy. I know a coward when I see one. Tucker's smile cracked for half a second. He recovered, ushered his suits away. One of the men, older, gray hair, sharp eyes, turned back to look at Whitney as he left. He held her gaze for a beat too long, then walked out. Whitney filed his face in memory. After class, Margaret apologized for speaking out. Whitney wrote on the whiteboard, "Never apologize for telling the truth. W." 2 of the trail. Maya Sutton walked past the side mat that night on her way out of the gym. She had been training BJJ since she was 16. Tucker had been her favorite instructor for 3 years. But lately, something had changed. He yelled more. He grabbed harder. He had cornered her after class last week and asked why she kept hanging around the night ladies. Maya didn't have an answer. She just knew that the side mat felt safer than the main mat. She stopped at the door, watched Whitney pack up. She wanted to say something. She didn't. Not yet. Week 2, Friday morning. Whitney came in early to prep extra equipment. The gym was nearly empty. She heard voices at the protein bar before they heard her. Told you, she's a hire by quota, Tucker was saying. The city's diversity contract. Anderson didn't have a choice. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a mute black woman teaching aerobics in my gym. Hayden snorted. Bro, what? It's true. This place used to have standards. Now we've got Brenda the battered housewife and a janitor pretending to be a Marine or something. Whitney was standing in the doorway. Hayden saw her first. His face went white. Tucker turned, saw her, did not apologize. Instead, he lifted his protein shake in a slow, mocking toast. Morning, instructor. Eavesdropping is a bad habit. Whitney walked past them without looking. She entered the side mat, set her bag down, sat on a crash pad in the empty gym for 30 full seconds. Her right hand closed into a fist. Her knuckles went white. It was the only time in 23 days her body would betray her composure. Then she opened her hand, stood up, started setting cones. But that night, alone in her apartment, she opened the footlocker for the first time in 11 months. She looked at the silver star. She looked at the discharge papers. She looked at the photograph of 3 Marines she had pulled from a burning Humvee, 2 of them still alive today because of what her hands had done in Helmand. She closed the box again. Not yet, but soon. 3 of the trail. Week 3, Saturday night. Tucker's 28th birthday party at Apex. Open bar on the upper deck. Loud music. 50 guests, half of them drunk. Whitney had finished her last evening class at 9. She was leaving when a student called. Whitney, my wallet. Did I leave it? She turned around, walked back inside. The wallet was on the side mat. She picked it up. That was when Tucker, Hayden, Garrett, and 4 BJJ guys from the upstairs party came down the stairs. Drunk, loud, looking for entertainment. Garrett saw her first. Oh, look, the night class janitor stayed late. They spread out around her. Loose circle, not touching, just blocking the exit. Hayden lifted his phone, hit live stream. Whitney, Tucker said, weaving slightly. Here's what we're going to do. You demo 1 self-defense technique. Just 1. Then you can go. Deal? One of the BJJ guys, Cole, slow clapped. Another whooped. Garrett feinted a punch toward her face, pulled back at the last second. She didn't even blink. Maybe she really doesn't know anything. The circle laughed. Whitney stood still. Her resting heart rate in that moment was 62 beats per minute. She had been in 3 firefights in Helmand Province. She knew the difference between drunk men with cameras and men who would actually swing. These men were drunk. They were also being recorded by one of their own. She waited. 4 minutes. 4 minutes of being circled, mocked, laughed at, while her face stayed blank as carved stone. She counted the witnesses. She counted the camera angles. She counted Tucker's blinks. She memorized Cole's face. She memorized the exact angle of Hayden's phone. Then, Coach Anderson came down the stairs. He saw the circle. He saw the live stream. He saw Whitney standing in the middle. "What the hell is going on?" Tucker grinned. "Coach, relax. Just a joke. She's fine." Anderson looked at Whitney. His face turned a color his face didn't usually turn. "Everybody upstairs, now." The circle broke. Whitney walked out. She didn't look at Anderson. She didn't look at any of them. In the parking lot, she sat in her car, hands on the steering wheel, breath steady. She pulled out her phone. She called Eleanor Cates, attorney, Veterans Rights Division, the woman she had been keeping in her contacts for 4 years for exactly this reason. Eleanor picked up on the second ring. "Whitney, it's time." Eleanor was quiet for a beat. Then, "Okay, don't initiate anything. Don't say a word more than you have to. And starting Monday, wear the body cam under your patch. We're going to give them all the rope they want." Whitney closed her eyes. Understood. She hung up. 4 of the trail. The rope was being measured. And upstairs, Tucker raised a toast to himself, certain he had won something. He did not know that the woman he had just terrorized had survived an IED that killed 2 of her teammates. He did not know that she had 3 witnesses in her phone, a lawyer on retainer, and a body camera arriving by mail on Tuesday. He did not know that every cruel sentence he had spoken for 3 weeks was about to become evidence. He thought he was the predator. He had no idea he had just walked into a trap built by someone who used to teach predator behavior to United States Marines. Section 5. Pause/counterplan. 296/300 words. WC-W. Tuesday evening. The body camera arrived in the mail. Whitney clipped it under her instructor patch, tested the angles, and walked into Apex carrying a duffel bag that now recorded everything. Maya Sutton walked in 5 minutes later with her right arm in a sling. She didn't make it to the side mat. She made it to the doorway. Then her legs stopped working and she sat down on the floor and started to cry. Whitney was on her knees beside her in 3 seconds. "What happened?" "He did it on purpose." Maya's voice was a whisper. "I asked him to slow down. He kept going. I heard the pop. He laughed." "Tucker?" "Yes." She held up her phone. "Then Hayden posted it. Look." Whitney looked. A 15-second clip. Maya on the mat, Tucker on top of her. The shoulder lock pulled past the safety angle. Maya screaming. Tucker grinning at the camera. The caption, "College girl thinks she belongs with the big dogs." 300,000 views. "My parents can't afford a lawyer," Maya whispered. "Anderson said it was an accident. If I report him to the Federation, I lose my scholarship. I lose my dorm. I lose everything." She looked up at Whitney. "I'm not going to be okay." Something in Whitney's face changed. Not anger, something older, something colder. She picked up the whiteboard marker, wrote 4 words, and turned the board toward Maya. "You are not alone." Maya read it, looked up. Whitney met her eyes. "I have people. Starting tonight, you do too." That night, Whitney texted Eleanor 1 sentence. "Bring the cameras. Saturday is the day." Saturday was demo day, the biggest filmed event of the year at Apex. Tucker had no idea the trap had just doubled in size. Saturday, demo day. 200 people packed the upper deck and lined the rails above the main mat. Sponsors, press, phones, 3 cameras on tripods angled at the floor. Tucker had been promoting this event for 6 weeks. Today was supposed to be his crown. He wore a fresh black gi, sponsor logos on every panel. Garrett sat in the front row in a $5,000 tracksuit, holding a phone for backup angles. Hayden roamed with his live stream open to 41,000 viewers. Whitney was setting up cones for her women's class, which started at 3. She had 8 students arriving in an hour. Eleanor Cates was already in row 3, briefcase at her feet, notarized timeline of events ready, body cam feed playing on her tablet. She had been there since the doors opened. Maya was beside her, sling still on, white-knuckled with nerves. Brenda and Margaret sat behind them. 6 other night class women filled the row. Whitney's people, in position, on the record. Whitney's body cam, clipped beneath the instructor patch, was rolling at 4K. Tucker did not know it existed. Tucker grabbed the mic. "Before we begin, special guest demo. Everyone, give it up for our newest instructor. Whitney, come on up. Show us what the night class teaches." The crowd turned. Cameras swiveled. Whitney didn't move. "Come on, sweetheart. Charity round. Just one technique. Don't be shy." "No, thank you." Her voice carried, rough but clear. The crowd murmured. Tucker's smile sharpened. He stepped off the platform, walked across the main mat, stopped 2 feet from Whitney. "I wasn't asking." His hand shot out and clamped around her right wrist, hard. He yanked her forward 2 steps onto the main mat, in full view of every camera in the building. That was the moment the law gave Whitney permission. What happened next lasted 52 seconds. Frame by frame, it would be replayed 19 million times. The first takedown. Whitney's hips rotated 3 inches. Her left foot hooked behind Tucker's right ankle. Kosoto Gake, the world's oldest takedown. Tucker's grip on her wrist became the lever that put him on his back. His head bounced once on the mat. The sound was sharp, a wet thump that traveled up to the rafters. A woman in row 2 gasped. A child in the back row started crying. 3 seconds. The choke. Hayden lunged from the side, swinging his phone hand back and his right fist forward in a clumsy haymaker. Whitney slipped under it like water. 2 steps. She was behind him. Her right arm slid under his chin like she was threading a needle. Rear naked choke. Textbook. 6 seconds later, Hayden was slapping the mat with both hands, his phone clattering across the floor, his face turning the color of cooked beets. The live stream kept rolling from where the phone landed, pointed straight up at the ceiling lights and Hayden's choking face. 11 seconds. 41,000 viewers had front row seats. The leg break that wasn't. Garrett charged in next, swinging a wild kick aimed at Whitney's head. Whitney caught his leg mid-air with the casual ease of a woman picking up a grocery bag. She stepped, twisted, dropped. Knee bar. Slow, controlled, mechanical. She did not crank it. She locked it and waited. Garrett screamed once, high, sharp, animal, and slapped the mat with his free hand 4 times in rapid succession. She released him immediately. He curled into a ball, gasping. His $5,000 tracksuit was streaked with sweat and tears. 23 seconds. The crowd was on its feet. Nobody was sitting anymore. Eleanor's tablet was recording. Maya was crying silently, hand pressed to her mouth, watching the man who had dislocated her shoulder writhe on the mat. The finish! Tucker was back on his feet. His face was the color of a stop sign. His perfect black gi was twisted around his ribs. He came in swinging a roundhouse with everything he had. Every shred of ego, every drop of rage, every lie he had ever told. Whitney slipped inside it, caught his arm at the wrist, rotated her hips, dropped him into a kimura. His shoulder reached the limit of human anatomy. Stopped. I tap! I tap! I tap! He screamed it 3 times, loud enough that the cameras on the upper deck caught it from 40 feet away. 52 seconds total. Whitney let go, stood up, stepped back. 3 black belts were on the mat. One was vomiting. One was curled around his knee. One was sobbing into his sleeve. She turned to the crowd, found Brenda in the 3rd row, found Margaret beside her, found Maya standing at the rail with her sling still on, her good hand pressed to her mouth. Whitney gave Maya one small nod. I told you. You are not alone." Then she walked off the main mat, picked up her cone bag, and returned to the side mat to finish setting up her 3 o'clock class. The silence in the gym lasted 4 full seconds. Then it broke. Phones exploded. Voices everywhere. Someone shouted, "Did you see that?" Someone else shouted, "Play it back!" A reporter from a local paper was already on her phone. Eleanor was typing. Coach Anderson was running across the mat toward Whitney, his face pale. He stopped 3 feet from her and didn't speak. He just stared. Whitney met his eyes for 1 second. Then she handed him a water bottle from her bag. "Class starts in 40 minutes, she said. "You might want to clear the mat." Anderson nodded slowly, like a man waking up from a long sleep. By 6 p.m., the clip had been mirrored to 11 platforms. By 9 p.m., it had 8 million views. By midnight, the hashtag Apex Demo Day was trending in 17 countries. By dawn, every major sports outlet had picked it up with the same headline: "Mystery instructor submits 3 black belts in 52 seconds." Nobody knew her name yet. Nobody knew her past yet. In Helmand Province, in a quiet barracks half a world away, an old gunnery sergeant watched the clip on his phone, set it down on the table, and started laughing. Slow, deep laughter from the chest. "I'd know those hips anywhere," he said to no one. "Williams, hot damn, she's back." In a brick courthouse in Aurora, Eleanor Cates was already drafting a motion. And in an upstairs office at Apex Combat Academy, Tucker Brennan, holding ice to his shoulder, was making a phone call to a lawyer of his own. He had decided he was going to destroy Whitney Williams. He had no idea how badly that decision was about to backfire. By Sunday morning, the story had changed. At 9:14 a.m., Tucker Brennan's attorney filed a civil suit and 3 criminal complaints: assault, battery, reckless endangerment. The complaint described Whitney Williams as a deranged employee with a documented history of violent outbursts. It included 3 witness affidavits, one from Tucker, one from Hayden, one from Garrett, claiming Whitney had attacked them without provocation in front of 200 witnesses. At 10:30 a.m., Hayden uploaded a new version of the demo day footage to his channel. The edited clip ran 22 seconds. It opened with Whitney's hip rotation. It cut Tucker's wrist grab entirely. It ended with Tucker screaming, "I tap!" and Whitney standing over him. The caption read, "Apex assault. Female instructor goes off on 3 coaches. Charges pending." The new clip got 14 million views in 6 hours. At noon, Garrett Holloway posted an MRI scan of a torn ACL. 3 surgeries minimum, career possibly over. He attached a GoFundMe link. Donations crossed $60,000 by sundown. The narrative flipped overnight. By Sunday evening, the internet had decided Whitney was the villain. Hashtags shifted. Hashtag Justice for Tucker trended in 12 states. Pundits picked up the story. One cable host on a Monday morning show said the words, "clearly suffering from untreated PTSD," on live television, while showing the edited clip on loop. Whitney's phone rang at 8:14 a.m. Monday. It was Coach Anderson. "I have to suspend you, pending the investigation. I'm sorry, Whitney. The board met this morning. I tried." Whitney closed her eyes. "I understand. Your women are still scheduled for tonight. Cancel the class. Tell them I'll call them personally." She hung up, sat at her kitchen table, looked at the unopened pile of veteran disability paperwork on the counter, looked at the footlocker. Then she called Brenda, then Margaret, then the other 6. One by one. She told each of them the class was paused, not canceled. She told each of them she was not leaving them. Brenda cried. Margaret swore. One of the women, a survivor of a home invasion, asked if Whitney was safe at her apartment. Whitney told her yes. It was the only lie she told all week. By Monday afternoon, the district attorney's office had filed 3 misdemeanor counts: third-degree assault, harassment, and reckless endangerment. If convicted on all 3, Whitney faced up to 18 months in county jail. Online detectives took it further. Within 48 hours, anonymous accounts had discovered that Whitney Williams had been dishonorably discharged for assaulting a superior officer, a lie pulled out of thin air. The lie reached 4 million users before fact-checkers caught it. A second pundit on a different network suggested that perhaps the diversity hiring practices at gyms like Apex are creating safety risks. Brenda's grocery store co-workers showed her the clip and asked if she was scared of that woman from the gym. Brenda walked out of her shift early and didn't come back the next day. Maya's parents called her at college and asked if she was being safe. They had seen the edited clip. They didn't know the backstory. Maya hung up sobbing. A reporter knocked on Whitney's apartment door Tuesday morning. Whitney didn't answer. He left 3 business cards under the door over the next 2 days. Margaret called Whitney that night. "They're eating you alive." "I know," Whitney said. "What's the plan?" "Eleanor's working it. Stay off social media. Don't talk to reporters. Trust the cameras." "Whitney, are you scared?" A long pause. "I've been scared before. This isn't that." She hung up. She sat in her apartment with the lights off for an hour. Then she opened the footlocker. She took out 3 things: a small American flag folded into a triangle, a silver star medal in its case, and a sealed envelope marked DD-214, containing the official Department of Defense documentation of her service record. She placed all 3 on her kitchen table. She took a photograph of them with her phone and sent the photograph to Eleanor with a 1-line message: "Authorize full release. Everything." Eleanor texted back within 90 seconds. "Confirmed. Filing tomorrow morning. They have no idea what's coming." Across town, Eleanor Cates was working a 19-hour day. She had filed a discovery motion at 4 a.m. requesting the original Hayden Voss live stream metadata, all internal Apex security footage from the previous 90 days, Tucker's social media archives going back 5 years, Garrett Holloway's medical records, and a FOIA request to the Department of Defense and the United States Marine Corps for the complete service record of Whitney Williams. She had also subpoenaed Hayden's draft folder and the deleted ones. By Wednesday morning, Eleanor had everything she needed. The original 4K live stream from Hayden's phone, uncut, undated, with Tucker's wrist grab clearly visible at the 14-second mark. Apex's interior security cameras, 3 angles, showing Whitney's body language for the entire 46 minutes preceding the fight. Tucker's social media archive, including 6 different posts where he had claimed to be a 3-deployment combat veteran, with photographs he had pulled from stock military image sites. Garrett's MRI metadata, including the original file name, Holloway_ski injury_2023.dcm, and Hayden's deleted text thread, recovered from carrier records, showing one message sent to Garrett at 11:47 p.m. on Saturday night. "Bro, we have to sell the ACL thing or we're cooked." Eleanor printed everything in triplicate. She labeled the folders by color: red for the lies, blue for the truth, gold for Whitney's service record. Then she called Whitney. "They built their case on 3 lies," she said, "and every single one of them is going to break on the same morning." "When?" "Pre-trial hearing, Thursday, 9 a.m. Bring the medal." Whitney was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Eleanor, one more thing. There's a man in the gym, older, gray hair. He was with Tucker's sponsors on the 2nd Thursday. He watched me. I think he knew." Eleanor wrote it down. "I'll find him." That night, Tucker Brennan ate dinner with his lawyer at a steakhouse downtown. He toasted his anticipated victory. He laughed. He ordered the most expensive bottle on the menu. He had no idea that across town, a quiet woman with a silver star on her kitchen table was opening the envelope that contained her military service record for the first time in 4 years. Or that an old soldier had just bought a plane ticket to Aurora. Thursday, 8:47 a.m., Aurora District Court, Department 3. Whitney Williams walked through the metal detector wearing a dark gray suit she had purchased on Wednesday afternoon. No medal pinned, no flag pin, just a plain steel watch and a manila envelope tucked under her arm. Tucker, Hayden, and Garrett sat at the plaintiff's table in $2,000 suits. Tucker was smiling. Garrett wore a knee brace he did not need. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, sponsors, 6 rows of Whitney's people. Brenda, Margaret, the night class women, Maya in her sling, 2 veterans Whitney had served with in Helmand. And at the back, in row 7, an old man with gray hair, weathered hands, and a Marine Corps lapel pin barely visible under his collar. Judge Patricia Hall called the courtroom to order. Eleanor Cates rose. Your Honor, the prosecution's case rests on 3 claims. 1, that my client attacked the plaintiff without provocation. 2, that the plaintiff's associate sustained a torn ACL in the incident. 3, that my client has a documented history of violence. Each of these 3 claims is a lie. I'm going to prove each one in this hearing, with the court's permission. Judge Hall nodded. Proceed. Exhibit A. Eleanor played the original 4K live stream from Hayden's phone, uncut, with metadata timestamps visible. At 14 seconds, the entire courtroom watched Tucker's hand reach out, grab Whitney's right wrist, and yank her forward. Tucker's lawyer leaned over to whisper to him. Tucker's smile faded 1 notch. Exhibit B. Eleanor displayed 3 message logs recovered by court subpoena from Hayden's deleted text folder. The most damning, sent at 11:47 p.m. on the night of the incident, read, "Bro, we have to sell the ACL thing or we're cooked." Garrett's face went the color of old paper. Hayden looked at the floor. Exhibit C. Eleanor displayed Garrett's MRI scan side by side with its original file metadata. The file name read Holloway_ski injury _2023.DCM. The date of the scan, November 9th, 2023, 3 full years before demo day. A reporter in the second row whispered audibly, "Oh my God." Garrett's lawyer requested a recess. Judge Hall denied it. Exhibit D. Eleanor turned and faced the plaintiff's table directly. Mr. Brennan has spent 5 years marketing himself as a 3-deployment combat veteran. He has appeared on 6 podcasts, 2 televised interviews, and 43 sponsored social posts using this claim. He has accepted veteran-affiliated sponsorships totaling $410,000 based on this claim. She raised a folder. This is the official response from the United States Department of Defense and the National Personnel Records Center, pursuant to FOIA request 26-FN-3022-DCS. The response states, and I quote, that there is no record of any branch of service of any individual named Tucker James Brennan matching his date of birth, having ever enlisted, served, deployed, or been honorably discharged from the armed forces of the United States. Eleanor lowered the folder. Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has committed multiple counts of stolen valor under federal statute 18 U.S.C. section 704. This will be referred to the United States Attorney's Office at the close of this hearing. Tucker's face was bone white. The courtroom was completely silent. Eleanor was not done. I'd like to call my first witness, Mr. Daniel Reeves, second chair instructor at Apex Combat Academy. Daniel Reeves walked to the stand, 36 years old, sandy hair. He had been Tucker's quiet number 2 for 4 years. He had also been keeping notes. Mr. Reeves, how many times in the past 3 weeks did you hear Mr. Brennan use the phrase, "too weak for combat," in reference to my client? 7 times. And how would you characterize his behavior toward Miss Williams? Daniel took a long breath. It was harassment. It was racial. It was repeated. And every single one of us in the gym was afraid to say anything because Tucker controlled the schedule. He looked at Tucker. I'm done being afraid. The motif broke under oath. Eleanor called her second witness. The gray-haired man in row 7 stood up. My name is Gunnery Sergeant Martin Hale, United States Marine Corps, retired. I served 28 years. From 2014 to 2018, I served as senior cadre instructor at the Marine Raider Combative Selection Course at Camp Lejeune. He paused. Whitney Williams was my colleague. She trained the instructors who trained the Raiders. She held the highest combative certification any Marine can hold, MCMAP Black Belt, 6th degree. She is, without exaggeration, one of the 3 most lethal hand-to-hand fighters I have ever stood next to in uniform. A reporter in the back stood up. Another one followed. On April 14th, 2019, in Helmand Province, Whitney's convoy hit a buried IED. The lead Humvee was on fire. 2 Marines were dead. 3 more were trapped inside. Whitney sustained a partial vocal cord laceration from shrapnel and second-degree burns on her right forearm. With her own body on fire, she pulled all 3 Marines out of the burning vehicle. 2 of them are alive today. One of them is sitting in row 4 of this courtroom.
A man in row 4, early 30s, prosthetic right leg, raised his hand. The gunnery sergeant continued. Whitney was awarded the Silver Star and the Purple Heart by direct recommendation from her battalion commander. The citation is a matter of public record. I have a certified copy here. He handed the document to the bailiff. The bailiff handed it to Judge Hall. Judge Hall read it aloud. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action, at extraordinary risk to her own life, Staff Sergeant Whitney L. Williams, United States Marine Corps. The courtroom did not make a sound. Tucker Brennan was crying. Garrett was looking at his shoes. Hayden had not lifted his head in 4 minutes. Stop right here. Before I tell you what the judge said next, I really need to hear from you first. This man stole a war hero's honor, lied for years, and got caught on every single count. What sentence would you give him? Drop it in the comments right now. Eleanor turned to Whitney. Your Honor, with the court's permission, my client would like to make one statement. Granted. Whitney stood, walked to the witness stand. She did not bring notes. She did not bring the medal. Judge Hall. Ms. Williams, do you wish to address the court? Whitney looked at Tucker for 1 long second. Then she looked at Maya. Then she looked at Judge Hall. 3 words, rasped clearly. I chose restraint. Judge Hall closed her file folder. All charges against Ms. Williams are dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Brennan, Mr. Voss, and Mr. Holloway, you will be remanded for evidentiary review. The matter of stolen valor charges and conspiracy to commit perjury will be referred to the United States Attorney by close of business today. She brought down the gavel. Whitney walked out of the courtroom. Behind her, 3 men in $2,000 suits sat at a table that had become the wreckage of their own design. The hashtags shifted again. Hashtag Justice for Whitney. Hashtag Silent Matt. Hashtag Stand for Restraint. By sundown, the world knew her name. The consequences came down like dominoes. Within 72 hours, the United States Attorney's Office filed federal charges against Tucker Brennan under the Stolen Valor Act, plus 2 state charges for perjury and 1 for conspiracy to defraud. His sponsorship contracts, every single one, were terminated within the week. The veteran-affiliated brands that had paid him $410,000 demanded full restitution. The federation that had certified him as a black belt instructor revoked his credential and issued a public statement. Tucker pleaded guilty in exchange for 18 months of supervised release, mandatory restitution payments, and a permanent ban from holding any instructor certification in the United States. He would spend the next 5 years working at a warehouse. Hayden Voss agreed to cooperate fully with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. He received 12 months of probation and was ordered to perform 400 hours of community service teaching at-risk teenagers, a placement chosen specifically so that he would face, in person and every week, the kind of young people whose pain he had once monetized. Garrett Holloway's family paid a quiet 7-figure settlement directly to Whitney to keep his name out of further proceedings. The check cleared on a Tuesday. Garrett moved to Florida the following week and was not heard from again. Coach Dale Anderson held a press conference at Apex Combat Academy on a rainy Friday afternoon. He stood at a small podium with no notes. I built this gym for 31 years. I let it become something I am ashamed of. I failed Whitney Williams. I failed Maya Sutton. I failed every woman who walked through those doors hoping to find something safe and was met instead with cruelty.
I am selling the gym. I am leaving the industry. And I am asking Whitney Williams to accept a public apology that no words of mine will ever be large enough to make right. He sold Apex 3 weeks later. He sold it to Whitney. She paid $1.
Whitney renamed the academy. The new sign over the front door read 3 words in plain white letters: Silent Matt. She used the settlement money to make every class free for women veterans, survivors of domestic violence, and any woman who walked in with a referral from a shelter or a VA caseworker. The night class became the day class. The day class became 7 days a week. Maya Sutton, shoulder fully healed within 6 months, became Whitney's first assistant instructor. She was 19 years old, a college sophomore, and she taught beginner BJJ on Saturday mornings to a class of 15 women, half of whom cried at least once during their first session, all of whom kept coming back. Brenda Holcomb taught the Intro to Fear class on Wednesdays. Margaret Hill taught military-style ground recovery on Tuesdays. The night class women became the leadership. The hashtags became a movement. Hashtag Silent Matt crossed 3 million tagged posts within 4 months. Women in 22 countries started self-defense circles using Whitney's curriculum, which she had quietly uploaded, free, no copyright, to a simple website with no advertising. Hashtag Stand for Restraint became a phrase printed on t-shirts, tattooed on forearms, painted on protest signs at city halls. It meant, I have the power. I am choosing not to use it until I have to. 6 months after the verdict, the Colorado State Legislature introduced House Bill 2904, informally titled Williams Rule. The bill required every certified martial arts instructor in the state to undergo annual background checks, mandatory reporting of student injuries, and public disclosure of any prior conduct complaints. It passed both chambers with bipartisan support. The governor signed it on a Tuesday morning at Silent Matt, with Whitney standing 2 feet behind him. She did not speak at the signing. She did not need to. The pen scratched, the cameras flashed. A new kind of quiet was being written into law. 1 year later, Silent Matt opens at 6 in the morning. The lights come up slow. The mats are blue and clean and worn in the right places. There are no posters of anyone on the columns. There is a single photograph in a small frame above the front desk. 3 Marines, smoke behind them, all of them alive. On a Tuesday morning, Whitney Williams teaches a beginner's class of 12 women. Half of them are veterans. 3 are domestic violence survivors. 2 are mothers whose daughters were assaulted in college. 1 is a federal prosecutor, learning ground recovery on her lunch break. Whitney's voice is stronger now. The vocal cord scar is still there. It always will be. But she has built up the muscle around it, breath by breath, class by class, until the words come out the way she wants them to come out. After class, a young woman stays behind to roll up the mats. Her name is Jada Marshall. She is 22 years old, recently separated from the United States Army, and she has been coming to Silent Matt for 3 weeks. She has not yet told anyone in the class why. Jada pauses, looks at Whitney's right forearm, and asks the question she has been holding for 3 weeks. Coach, where did you get the scar? Whitney does not flinch. She raises her hand to her chest, makes a small, sharp sign, the word fire in American Sign Language, the first word she ever taught herself to sign in the months after Helmand, when speaking still hurt. Then she lowers her hand, looks at Jada, and uses her voice. Rough, clear, steady. Fire and family. Jada nods slowly, doesn't speak, sits down on the mat next to Whitney. They roll the mats together in silence. Behind them, on a small shelf in the office, 2 objects sit side by side. A silver star, no longer face down, and a body camera, retired now, the lens covered with a small piece of black tape. 2 tools, one for survival, one for proof. Both still in service, in different ways. I told this story because I have watched the world judge a woman before she even speaks. Whitney never had to prove she deserved respect, but the world still demands the proof.
I want my daughter to know both of those truths. If this story moved you, here is what I would ask. Tell me in the comments about someone in your life who deserves to be seen the way Whitney deserved to be seen on day one, before anyone knew her name, before the medal, before the headlines. A coworker, a neighbor, a quiet woman in your gym, a veteran on your block. Tell me their name. I read every one. Share this video with one person who has ever been told they were too weak for combat, in any room, in any voice, on any day of their lives. They need to hear how that sentence ends. Subscribe to this channel if you believe restraint is a kind of strength, and that strength used in defense of others is the highest form of either. And if you are a veteran watching this, thank you. We see you. We are still building the world that deserves what you carried. Hashtag Silent Matt. Hashtag Stand for Restraint. Hashtag Justice for Whitney. The mats are rolled. The lights go down. The doors are unlocked tomorrow at 6. The class continues.